Flashback to Pokemon Red and Blue. So you finally defeated all of the Elite Four members. You're probably excited at the thought of becoming champion, becoming the best like no one ever was. Then Lance, the final Elite Four member, drops in an important tidbit. Your rival has beaten the Elite Four before you and now is the current champion. In order to become the new champion, you must defeat him. Man, wasn't that so hype? Let's recreate those memories. What if every rival became the champion throughout the game series? What will their teams look like? Also, please like and subscribe. We're going to skip the Kanto games because in every iteration, the rival was the champion. This includes Blue and this guy. Now, onto the Johto games. The rival is Silver. In this scenario, similarly to Blue, he would defeat the champion before you. In terms of team building, we'll take his strongest team, which is his team during the Indigo Plateau fight. His team consists of Sneasel, Magneton, Gengar, Alakazam, Crobat, and the starter that is super effective against yours. Either Typhlosion, Feraligatr, or Meganium. Honestly, this team isn't half bad, but I would like to make a little change. The change is to evolve Sneasel and Magneton. And I know what you're thinking, Weavile and Magnezone weren't introduced in the initial Johto games, so he can't utilize them. And to that, say screw that rule. There's no way that a champion should be using under-leveled Pokemon. And I bet you guys also agree. So he'll just evolve those two Pokemon and we'll call it. I feel like this is a solid team, even though there is a type overlap with Poison. And also, I am aware that certain champions like Wallace use, only water type Pokemon, but I'd still prefer a team that is more diverse. But I feel like Crobat and Gengar are strong Pokemon, so it's not that big of a deal. Next up, we have Hoenn. Hoenn has 3 rivals, but we'll start with Brandon and May. So before we start, I'm going to group them into one person, since they both use the same exact Pokemon. I mean, it just makes sense since you only encounter one of them depending on what gender you choose. Just like Blue, they would have probably beaten the champion before you showed up. Their strongest team is to fight in Route 103 in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So they'll use Swellow, Raichu, Magcargo, Wailord, Breloom, and the starter that is super effective against yours. And of course, it's either going to be Sceptile, Swampert, or Blaziken. Actually, I want to clarify something regarding the following Pokemon: Breloom, Magcargo, and Wailord. They'll not opt one of these Pokemon depending on if the type overlaps with your starter, which is why their usual last final fight consists of 5 Pokemon, which I think is dumb, by the way. You might think their champion team should be the 5 Pokemon plus the Pokemon that they disregard. And to that I say no, but with a small revision. If you didn't know, Brendan and May actually have 2 secret Pokemon that they use. You can only see them if you're in a multi-battle with them in the Battle Mason. These 2 Pokemon are Exploud and Claydol. My idea is to replace the disregarded Pokemon with Claydol. This creates a well-balanced team, and they are able to Mega Evolve their starter depending on what generation you are playing. Wally is up next. In this scenario, I believe instead of challenging you at Victory Road, he would want to surprise you after he defeated the Pokemon League. So what will his team be? We're going to utilize his strongest team, which is his Victory Road team, consisting of Altaria, Delcatty, Roselia, Magneton, and Gardevoir, or Gallade, depending on the generation. But for simplicity's sake, he's going to be using a Gallade. We're going to have to evolve Roselia into Roserade and Magneton into Magnezone. Next, we're going to give him a 6th Pokemon. I think a good Pokemon is a huge power Azumarill. I mean, he does use one in the Battle Mason, so I think that's fair. Also, I want to replace Delcatty since it is a weak Pokemon. So let's replace it with a stronger Pokemon like Exploud. I think it's funny that a reserved boy would use a loud and intimidating Pokemon. Like he's able to utilize Pokemon that have contrasting personalities to his. Another well-balanced team, if I say so myself. For the Sinnoh team, we have Barry. This final fight takes place right before you challenge the Elite Four. Like, I'm not kidding. Literally right at the entrance to the Elite Four. So in this scenario, he defeats the Elite Four before we enter the Pokemon League, which I think fits with his character trait of being impatient. His team will consist of his final fight: Staraptor, Heracross, Snorlax, the starter that is super effective against yours, Torterra, Infernape, or Empoleon. Similarly to Brendan and May, he'll use either Roserade, Rapidash, and Floatzel, then disregard one of them depending if it type overlaps with the starter they have. Honestly, I think this team is pretty solid. I mean, yeah, there is a normal normal type overlap between Snorlax and Staraptor, though Staraptor can easily handle fighting types, unlike Snorlax, so it should be fine. And yeah, that's his team. First up, for the Unova region is Cheren, and just like the previous scenarios, he would defeat the Elite Four before you enter the Pokemon League. We'll be utilizing his Victory Road team. Liepard, Gigalith, Haxorus, and Pheasant, the elemental monkey that is the same type as your starter, and the starter that is super effective against yours. This team is honestly really solid, but I would change one thing. I'd replace Unpheasant with Stoutland because it has better stats and has better coverage moves like Thunderfang and Ice Fang. Also, it's akin to his Stoutland in Pokemon Black and White too. So that's it for Cheren. Next up is Bianca, and the strongest team she utilizes is her Nuvema team. The team consists of Stoutland, the elemental monkey that is super effective against your starter, Musharna, Mienshao, Chandelure, and the starter that has a type disadvantage to your starter. Honestly, this team looks well balanced, but unfortunately this isn't the case if she uses Emboar. Her Emboar's types overlap with her Mienshao and Chandelure, so we have to change these two Pokemon for her Emboar team. I believe we can replace these Pokemon with Beartic and Excadrill. I feel like these two Pokemon suit her. Also, they can utilize our super high attack stat, which is cool. We're skipping N because he becomes champion. Now on to Kyug. We'll be using his strongest team, which is the Undella Town fight. He uses Unpheasant, the elemental monkey that is weak against your starter. Man, these guys love using the monkeys. Wow, that sounded so wrong. Anyways, he also uses Ophilant, Flygon, Electros, and the starter that is super effective against yours. First up, we're going to replace Unpheasant with Braviary, which is honestly a better version of Unpheasant, so yeah. Sorry to the 3 Unpheasant fans out there. I think that's about it. Good team. Next up, we have Kalos, and man, there are so many rivals in this region. First up, similarly to May and Brendan, we're going to group Callum and Serena together because they both use the same exact Pokemon. We'll be utilizing their rematch team, which consists of Meowstic, Clefable, the evolution that is the same type as your starter, Absol, Altaria, and the starter that is super effective against yours, Greninja, Chestnut, or Delphox. Get rid of Meowstic. Meowstic is an extremely weak Pokemon. Its stats are absolutely terrible. But what Pokemon should we replace it with? I'd say Snorlax, since canonically the protagonists of X and Y use a Pokeflute to wake up Snorlax on Route 7 to progress the game. So canonically it makes sense. The only problem with this team is that if they use Greninja, then it type overlaps with Absol. But I'd say it's okay since Absol will be able to Mega Evolve, which I guess makes up for it. We got these dudes, and these guys are so trash. All 3 of these dudes only used 3 Pokemon on their final teams. It doesn't make any sense. So we're going to have to do some creative thinking. Also, I can't think of a scenario in which either of these people can beat the league, nor challenging the league in the first place. I don't know, maybe they wanted to lock in one day. Anyways, let's start with Shauna. Her final team consists of Delcatty, Goodra, and the starter that has type disadvantage towards yours. Yup, that's it. Although she uses a Sylveon in the Battle Mason, so we'll add it to the team. We'll also add Mega Venusaur because she uses a Bulbasaur in the anime. Yes, I am aware that it might be a type overlap with Chestnut, but similarly to the Absol situation, the fact that it Mega Evolves compensates for that. And we'll add like a Pangoro because it feels like a Pokemon that she would own. Also, I would replace Delcatty since, you know, it's weak. I'll replace it with like Furfrou since I'd assume that she likes fashion and Furfrou's gimmick is that they get haircuts. Yes, I know that Furfrou isn't a strong Pokemon, but it's the best we have in terms of theming. This nerd is next. Trevor's final team only consists of Raichu, Aerodactyl, and Florges. The first Pokemon we'll add is Mega Charizard Y. He uses one in the anime, so he'll use one in the games. Next, I'd say Alakazam, because it's a super smart Pokemon, just like him, except the Pokemon aspect, of course. See guys, I'm nice. Since he is a photographer, I'd assume he likes to catch rare Pokemon, so I believe he'll use Scizor and Lapras. Another well-balanced and good team. Lastly, for X and Y is Tierno, the dude who likes to dance. His final team consists of Talonflame, Roserade, and Crawdaunt. We're going to add Mega Blastoise since he uses one in the anime. And of course, the Mega will compensate for the water type overlap with Groudon. Next, we'll add Raichu and Hitmontop since he uses these Pokemon in the anime as well. See guys, that wasn't so hard. Why the devs couldn't make these guys an actual threat is beyond me. Next, we have Alola. We'll skip How because we technically have a quote-unquote champion fight with him in the Ultra games. So next, we have Gladion. And honestly, his league fight is his perfect champion team. It consists of Crobat, Zoroark, Porygon Z, Lucario, the Kanto starter that shares the same type as your starter, and Silvally. Now onto Galar. The first rival is Hop. In order for this scenario to make sense, Hop would have to beat Leon the year before you start your gym challenge. And now let's analyze his champion team. Unlike other rivals, Hop uses a variety of Pokemon in different battles. So I'll create a well-balanced team out of them. The first Pokemon is Dubwool. I mean, it's his first partner Pokemon, so we have to include it. Second would be Corviknight from his final battle team. Third would be a low tempo Toxtricity because he uses a Toxel in the Stow-on side fight. Fourth would be Sandaconda because he uses Silicobra in that same fight. Fifth would be Zashi. Nah, I'm just kidding. His last two Pokemon will be the two Galar starters that you didn't choose. I did this because I didn't want a type overlap, and also I think it would make sense for Leon to spoil Hop. I mean, they're both brothers, and he would Gigantamax the starter that is super effective against yours. Next up is Bede. He's the first Mono-type rival, and he utilizes the Fairy type. Also, we're going to be following the same scenario as Hop for the rest of the Galar rivals. We're going to use his final team, which consists of Mawile, Gardevoir, Rapidash, Sylveon, and Gigantamax Hatterene. For the final Pokemon, I'll add Togekiss. Togekiss is a pretty powerful Pokemon. Lastly, we have Marnie. She's also a Mono-type rival. In this case, she mainly utilizes the Dark type. I say mainly because she uses Toxicroak for some reason. Anyways, we'll use her final team, which consists of Liepard, Toxicroak, Scrafty, Morpeko, and Gigantamax Grimmsnarl. We'll throw in Malamar to handle fighting types, since it is a part psychic type. I don't think I'll consider Arven nor Penny as rivals. They're more like companions in my opinion. We'll also ignore Kieran since he becomes a champion. Anyways, that's about it. If you want to check out any of my other videos, click over here.